Any questions on that?
Just a short thank you, I guess, each time you brought it up, a ton of moving pieces between the need, found last, what was it, December? Or it was before the beginning of the new year, with the realization that location change would need new buildings. Took a lot of people, to get involved, to make a determination on space and everything else. Not only did they do that, but they're also looking at new programming. Everybody involved with the case and change programs, I would like to thank for the amount of effort that they put in. We had several meetings directly with the leadership of the schools, and then the move itself. I mean, just to take all of those things, get it to a different location. So obviously all of us will have to modify some of our paperwork on addresses and things like that for the new year, to make sure all of those things go smoothly. But there's a ton of moving parts, and I'd like to thank everybody that was involved in those small groups, as well as the change employees as well. They do an amazing job throughout the year with creating these new programs to defer some of those youth from being involved in juvenile justice system. So, moving on, discussion of the 2026 adult and probation mental health grant award. Go first.
Sure. So as I think everybody probably had heard, the budget for the pot of money that the DOC uses to award things to community corrections, as well as anybody who got opened up under the 1006 funding program, was reduced statewide. It was reduced by about 10%. So we all had to wait to receive our awards to find out where we were going to fall in that. I've spent some time looking at the overall awards because it is public knowledge. So they put out a list showing what happened with all the money at every county that had asked for it. And just trying to get an idea of kind of where, I'll say that the Department of Correction is notoriously known for not sharing information on how they make their decisions. So if you ask them, you'll get a canned answer that doesn't really tell you anything. It'll include something about the funding formula and some other information about maybe program reports and things like that. So kind of just taking a look at the numbers to see if we could discern on our own how the decisions were made. One of the first things that becomes obvious is that they made a decision to cut a lot of the programs that received 1006 funding or that had been added in the last decade sometime. And those were prosecutor diversion programs, jail treatment programs, pretrial, and there were 2 A&D programs that were basically cut to zero funding. After that, it looks like they took percentages off of problem-solving courts, probation awards, and both types of community corrections awards. For the DOC, those are separated into community supervision and residential. So for us, for the community supervision and the residential, we took about a 9% cut, which is more than some places, less than a lot of places. So we cannot be unhappy about that, I suppose. There were some counties that were cut up to 30%. So 9% doesn't seem as bad when you look at it that way. There were some counties, smaller programs that did only community supervision that had a 0% cut. I think about maybe 15 or so of those. So just an estimate, I didn't count them. So in looking at that, we had to obviously do some rework of the budget again. Our budget hearing with the county council was on Wednesday. So we went up, kind of presented to them this same information and then asked for a little more assistance so that we would be able to do staff raises. Obviously, that's a question across the board for the county at this point of whether or not any county employees are going to be getting raises. So it was only a presentation. The other thing that I also brought to their attention in hopes that they'll discuss is possibly taking some things back over. Specifically, what I asked was for the IT budget. So in the community corrections budget, we pay about $30,000 a year for software and servers, and I'm not going to try to say because they'll be like that. That's not what it is. it's things that we were not previously paying for until about a year and a half ago, when, for whatever reason, in the budgets, they decided to switch that onto our responsibility. So that's something I've asked them to possibly take back and move back into the IT budget out of some other county funding. We will have to wait until I believe September to have answers on that. We did remind the council that our budgets to the Department of Corrections are due on September 1st, which I think is actually a few days before they are set to meet again to do the budget hearings. So hopefully we will be provided some sort of information before that time. So our budget's gonna be turned in. Everything you add,
The probation grants, we felt about the same percentage in cut. Kind of surprised as you take a look at our grant process. That's one of the only other sections that when you take a look at how they fund them. Pretrial separate, prosecutor diversion, and probation is separate. So I was kind of surprised to see that, we still got it, but at the same time, they did give us a percentage cut. They also, when allocating the money previously, had allowed for several budget line items that they had taken away from us this time in that percent. So first they cut us about 10%, then they said, any funds that we give to you can only go to two things in the 100 series, which for anybody who does the budget, that's just salary and fringe. So we did lose some financial help with testing because Officer Johanna Scott, who takes care of that grant, usually uses as much as she can to help fund our testing budget, or by using her funds directly for those on her caseload to test. As of previous years, we got about $9,000 in that. We lost that. But preparing for this budget cycle, myself, Michelle, and Assistant Chief Paul have been meeting since February. An extensive amount of planning. Well, we planned for the possibility that our supplier, tester, Abbott Labs, was asking for a possible 10% increase. So we added that to our general budget. And then Brian and Michelle were able to hold them over the barrel and get a second year freeze on our prices. I don't know if we'll get that next year since we've gone 2 in a row, but we'll try. So ultimately, we kind of had a zero-sum game. I added the money again, so we have it there, and then we didn't get the money from DOC, so we should be fine there. But also having it limited to the 100 series is new for us. Usually we have some ability to help with travel training and drug testing. But other than that, I think both of us spent about 2 days looking at every other county and every other grant entity, what they got, what they didn't get. But, and I think both of us said, it's not fun to make cuts, but we definitely did all right in comparison.
So obviously waiting on information from the council, but then also knowing that our amended budgets are due by September 1st, the board doesn't meet again until September 12th. Do we believe we need to vote to allow the executive committee to approve the amended budgets before they're submitted on September 1st?
Right on time, Kelly.
I thought it was late, my bad.
You were waiting for me.
Thanks, Tom. Sorry.
Discussion. I'm sure there's a great deal in the past that we've been able to do through the executive board, especially when it's time sensitive. My 2 cents is that I think it's appropriate.
Yeah, is the question is, do we have to have a motion, or do we think they can just do it?
Is the question.
That's what
Yes.
I think they can just do it. We need to.
I would agree. Our original grant request, our original budget filing, all of those had an approved vote anything we do now, ultimately would probably be less than what we requested. So I think we're operating under the authority of a lesser budget, so. Moving on. Discussion regarding mandatory community service work for all participants.
So I wanted to bring this to the board because I think as part of the participation agreement that we have, it is listed in our rules, but it is something that the staff's been kind of discussing a change on. And the reason for that is, and I was doing research on it, kind of looking back into what does the most up-to-date research say on having community service work as part of community supervision. It is split. There you can find studies that say it is helpful as part of community reparation, things like that. You can find others that say it's not helpful, there's no efficacy. But I think what I was seeing when I looked it up kind of tracks along with what our staff has been feeling, and that is it works when you do it in more of a road crew or work through where you take people out in a supervised fashion in a van. And you have them do something specific where they go to a certain place and they do that work, which we do not have the ability nor the staff to supervise. When they're going on their own, and what we're basically doing is expecting the people at the community service work sites to be the supervision. It doesn't appear to be working that well. The problems that we've been seeing with it have been either people going to their community service work site and not actually working, sitting in their cars, playing on their phones, vaping places they're not supposed to be vaping, including sometimes in the buildings. And what we find is that the folks that work at community supervision or community service work sites are very large-hearted and kind people who don't want to cause conflict. And so when they have issues like this, they either don't know how to handle it, aren't handling it, or don't know how to report it, or wait until it's happened multiple times before they tell us that it's happening. And so what our discussion has been is basically, are we in fact actually allowing criminal thinking and manipulation to continue to take place? Because we're sending folks out to places where they, instead of working, are having their family come meet them and just hang out. And because we don't have the ability or the staff at the time to go and supervise that ourselves, we're not sure it's being done properly. What we're kind of proposing, and I guess asking for the board's approval for, is to remove the requirement of automatic mandatory community service work for everyone in the program and use it instead for only those who are not employed. Like you will do community service work until you get employed. That way it's a lesser number for us to attempt to supervise and verify and talk to the site supervisors about, or as a sanction, if we need it in our, as part of our graduate distinction process.
I have to leave in just a moment, to get back to the trial, but I will say I wholeheartedly support that. The research that I have seen is that it serves no rehabilitative purpose. And if what you're describing is happening, I think it's entirely possible that it is a negative situation rather than something positive. So I think that change is totally supported and is appropriate.
I totally do not support it. I listened to what you said. If you want to avoid people committing a crime or bankrupt, a really easy way to do it is utilize bankruptcy. Basically, what you're saying is you got people going out and acting like hooligans, and the whole idea is they're not supposed to act like hooligans. So the way you do it is you don't make them do it. Work is good for your soul. There's a component to this program that goes beyond simply treating them, letting them go to work. They should give them back. So I think we should table it because I do believe the other part is that, okay? These are good spirited people. You don't have any right to put them in conflict. You have local districts. We should try to find out within the ambit of county government whether or not we have the ability to place these people to do things that are positive in the community that give back in more of the context that you're talking about that is positive. Road crews working on stuff, painting curves stuff. I used to So my personal suggestion is to table it. If indeed you have nothing that fits the effective thing that works, I guess, okay, all right. But on the other hand, realistically, I would never say, no, you don't do community service just because you're showing up and sitting in your car and not doing what you're supposed to do. You can't use that as a test. You might as well eliminate a lot of other stuff people don't want to do here. I'm serious. It's like, yeah, they don't pay attention to MOT and they, they punch each other, they screw around. So, well, that's not productive. Let's stop MRT. No, we need to see if we can find something to address that.
I think the difference for us there is that MRT, for example, we have the ability to supervise and we don't have such problems because we
And
are.
I very much do understand that, and I'm not trying to be a total contrarian. I am by nature one, but I'm not trying to be one right now. But before you can, I would like to find out if we have something in this county that could be supervised in that fashion, whether it's road crews, it's other things that need to be done, park people, stuff like that, before you just throw it away.
Can I add something? Judge, respectfully, I stopped recommending community service for juveniles years and years and years ago because it is ineffective, because in order for the juveniles to do it and to do it successfully, I would have to go and supervise, and I simply don't have the time. And I think that is what, and I think that is what,
I very much
the
understand.
director is saying.
I very much understand that.
And I've seen
But
everything.
until you assure yourself, for instance, that Brady Thomas isn't willing to put a deputy out there in the car while these people are working road crews, or something like that, don't tell it. Don't tell it.
I don't think she wants to shove it. I think she wants to say that for special times for people that aren't working.
I will repeat, according to my grandfather, or 1902, work is good for your soul.
It's
And
very
it's good for everyone's soul.
So, I'll give you this. Historically, some of your examples have been examined. We can go back, we can examine those again. The nuance to some portions of that, I absolutely agree with you, Judge. It's one of those things that has been a mindset, of reinstituting a community thought pattern, of reinstituting, some life expectations, get up early, get out of bed, go do something, get active. Those kind of things for people who may not have before, getting them slid into, some positive, ethical thought patterns that getting out of bed, going to work, taking care of themselves. The other issue that she's describing, which is a bit of a nuance, and yes, can be solved if we're the ones with the accountability. The question is how thin do we get spread, consistently being the only ones being the accountability partner. The other problem is the moment that's not us, is what she's describing as the criminal thinking creeps back in. Every single officer available has had to do an investigation on a forgery of community service, not unlike a forgery of an AANA sheet or one of those other things, where you look at and you allow them, and Ms. Baldwin and I discuss pretty regularly, and maybe more intensely in the last couple of weeks, internal and external controls. We have that external control. It's our expectation, and we have to kind of slide them into internal controls to where they're making those positive decisions on their own. Coming out here, there's an extensive amount of expectation for external controls in almost all aspects of their life. This community service program, as it stands, which you're correct, maybe there's some other programming that we can institute, starts actually putting too much internal controls for themselves before they're probably ready for it. So they're making decisions they shouldn't be before they should be allowed to make them. If it was a road crew, yeah, they wouldn't get a break. They wouldn't be able to pay. They'd be held accountable if they weren't working, all the rest of that stuff. But what she's describing is, placing them out in some other places, and yeah, she's correct, they're all very kind-hearted and wait for about 5 months before they call us and say, you know, these people did this and this and this, and we're like, why didn't you call us the same day? We could have handled that. Their accountability threshold is much different than what we have expectations for out here. So it's a complicated issue. I know historically we have examined those, unsure whether somebody like the sheriff would be willing to get involved and do the road crew thing. But I suppose we could examine it if it's the direction of the board.
We're going to collect that information. I think, I think for us, when we looked at it, what we saw was basically if we didn't have the expectation for everyone, we had quite a large number of hours. And so part of the problem is having that number of people trying to spread throughout the community to do these things. And then sometimes we have the problem with them, returning early, saying they didn't have anything for me to do, so that's why I didn't get my hours done. And then that necessitates staff calling to say, is that true? And then we have to hold the DHB, right, Steve, because that wasn't true, and they just left because they wanted to be lazy and all these different things. And then it ratchets all the way up to getting a phone call saying, well, so-and-so had his significant other meet him here, and we're pretty sure they were having sex in the car in our parking lot. That's a problem. And part of that is due to the fact that we have their time and their location so restricted as it needs a supervisor program, that they go, oh, well, if I'm gonna be out of community service, this is a perfect place for her to come meet me because I don't have any other opportunity to do what I'm gonna do, basically. So our thought being that we used it more pointedly for those as a sanction, but we thought it would be inappropriate for the reasons that you were describing. But then also for those that are not employed, it's a good, kind of a good motivator, right? You're gonna work either way, so you should probably work making money instead of as
Answer me this, why does it work with people who don't have jobs and it doesn't work with people who do have jobs? Or does it not work for any of them? You're just suggesting you continue to throw the mud at the wall for people who don't have jobs.
I think she answered that in the fact that there's motivation to, when they work, to have some benefit for themselves. You know, if you're out, so I guess the clarification is, yeah, we're not saying no community service for anybody. It can still be used for your saying.
I understood what you said.
Okay, then,
And then I think secondarily, what I would add to that is that having only a certain group doing it, for example, those that are sanctioned or those that are employed, allows our staff much more time to make sure that we can supervise it appropriately and verify, make sure that things are going the way that they were supposed to be going, instead of trying to do that for every participant in the program.
Listen to my simple request. I'm going to lose this. I know it. I accept it, okay? But before you do it, I would like you to explore whether there are any viable options. And the reason I say that is that Sheriff Tubbs and I do not see eye to eye on courthouse security. Anybody who's been around us knows that we do not agree at all. But here's the thing. There has not been one single time I can think of that I didn't ask for Sheriff Tubbs' assistance in doing something and he didn't do it and do it. That's just been my experience with me. And so until you at least talk to him, find out a few things, I'm just not in favor of moving quite that rapidly.
that sounds like a motion to table from Judge Brown.
That's really what I.
Second. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's a second.
Oh, just quickly on your question, isn't there anything they can do here? Rooms and
Yes, we often have people doing community service work here, and that has never been an issue. Our only concern with that
Never.
usually is
You.
it can be handled. It's an issue. The concern for us with that is that, well, as the rules are written right now, it's 3.5 hours a week for the participants to complete, and we don't have that much work for each person to do 3.5 hours in a week.
Mhm.
Okay, Moving on to updates, just wanted to give everyone an update that our staff, we do continue to work through our, community supervision goals that were developed during our time with the Department of Corrections, University of Cincinnati. We're still working on holding a motivational assessments, creating a transition plan for participants that exit the program, piloting a couple assessments, and, creating a CQI program to kind of run with our treatment providers. We're gonna be going out to, sit in on some groups, see how they're run, and also giving participants exit surveys about treatment to see how they felt their time of treatment went. And then we're gonna be sharing those with the treatment providers so that they can have, the information that we're also receiving. And second one, just an update that we are gonna be starting a 6-week class targeting, parenthood issues for people in the criminal justice system, and that starts later this month. That's all I had.
Question, comments, concerns? Any other business? No? Entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All right, Steve. Thank you very much for your attendance. You have next meeting then.
Yeah. So,
September 12th, next meeting. Thank you all for it. So